Thank you so much to everybody who is supporting me on Patreon. Your generosity and support is greatly appreciated. I love you all so much. If you like what I do and want to support me in a more personal way, then consider joining my Patreon page today. There will be a link at the top of the description. Hello and welcome to another Nerf video on the channel. My name is Luke Triton. This is going to be a discussion video in regards to the 50 darts drum magazine that came with the Elite Titan CS50. Now in the review video, I didn't really cover this in much detail. That's because I, for one, think it's worthy of its own video. And more so to the point, I bought two of those blasters, both at around £65 each. Second hand, not too bad. And overall, I bought them for the drums. I knew I was going to end up buying one anyway because I really wanted this 50 dart drum. But seeing two at similar prices, especially that low, I, for one, think it was worth the purchase. Now then. In the original review video, I did talk about, I think I talked about the feeding issue. I think that was one thing I covered because it was probably the biggest thing about it. But even then, there's just a few more things I thought were worthy of its own video. I didn't want the review itself to go on for too long. That was another thing, looking back at the turbine video I did earlier today, I thought, I probably shouldn't talk on for too long. So yes, this is the 50 dart drum magazine that comes with the Titan CS50. This one isn't fully loaded, as you can see around here. I have taken some darts out for a demonstration later on. Hopefully it goes the way I want it to go, but that's all part of the discussion I'm going to be having later on. So having bought two of these second-hand for around £65 each, I thought it's worthy of the purchase alone just for the drum. I really wanted to get a hold of one of these, and the fact that I was able to get a second one, again, I was able to convince myself that yes, it's worth the purchase, is amazing, absolutely splendid. I don't think it would be a good idea for people to buy brand new ones just for the sakes of the drum, because brand new ones can be really expensive. If you find one second hand for a good enough price, then I for one would say yes, it's worth the purchase because the drum is so good. Love it so much. Previously, the largest magazine that Nerf had made was the 35 dart drum that came with the Raider many years ago. My one doesn't feed properly. It's a very old, worn down drum magazine, and I haven't really been able to use it effectively. I've loaded it a few times, and even then it doesn't feed well, so that's a bit of a shame. But thankfully, the 50 dart drum magazine has more darts, a higher darts capacity, and feeds much better than that old piece of rubbish. That's 35. You go in big. You go with the 50 darter now. So, having explained that this is the biggest capacity drum, of course, this is something that people have been wanting for years. Ever since the Stampede first came up with those pictures many years ago. I have been in the Nerf hobby long enough to remember this. I remember seeing those pictures. What if the Stampede came up with a 50 dart drum? The hobby would be so different because for a decade we would have access to something like this. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And the fact they were able to go ahead and make this official product is amazing. It's so cool. So one thing I think is worth talking about, because I keep staring at the back part, is the feeding issues. I think I said this in the review video. I can't actually remember because it's been a while since I recorded that earlier today. So when it came to loading this, it was a bit of an issue. Firing this out of a few blasters in particular, most notably my regulator, because it is a fully automatic, fast fire rate blaster. The darts weren't able to keep up. So that's kind of two things going on in one there. So let me see if I can load this properly. When it comes to loading this, you have to stick with 50 darts because it doesn't like it when you add more. I was able to fit in a 50 first, but it really didn't like it, having to fit in that extra one dart. Technically, you could get it to fit in properly, but when it came to feeding, none of the blasters, whether it was a flywheel blaster or if it was spring powered, none of them liked that extra dart. So don't try and push in that extra one. If it's crummy, it doesn't matter. Don't use crummy darts with something like this as well. Use your best darts for a nice fat drum magazine like this. Stick to 50 because it can hold 50 anyway. Pushing in more is just a bit stupid, but nonetheless, wise advice. So right now I'm loading in I took out about 11 darts and I'm loading them back in right now. When I came to loading this, around the 40 dart mark, there was a bit of an issue when it came to loading in these darts. It got to the point where I had to use this wheel bit on the back, and there were times where I would go to push it in. To anybody who hasn't used a drum before, if there's any ever an issue, you push that in and that forces the cylinder to rotate, so therefore you can get that spring lowered and get more darts in. Every time I loaded this, even, oh, here we go, I think I'll be able to push past it, there we go. So what was I about to say? Yeah, so when it came to loading this one, near enough every time I was loading this with all the darts, even with my best darts, I would have to try and use this wheel, but the wheel would get stuck. So I'm not actually using all my force because I don't need to use so. So I push in, and it would just do that. Again, it's not accurate because I'm not pushing in all the way. I don't need to right now, thankfully, because the drums decided to behave. But that got so frustrating, I thought, oh my god, am I going to have to do this every single time I load this drum? Because yes, having to reload it is a bit of a pain in the ass because it's 50 darts, that's going to take a while. But it took a few minutes before the drum decided to behave and go, oh, you want to load more darts in? Okay, and then the spring decided to lower it and I can add more darts in and fill it up to the absolute maximum. So there were times where, I've still got a few more to load in, but I think I could show this off now, where I would just basically push down like this just to try and force it because the mechanism here wouldn't behave. And that was really frustrating, especially after a while. You know, you're there for a minute or so just trying to get the bloody thing to feed properly, and it won't. Thankfully now, if I try and turn that, that's all good. So this is actually one of the few rare occurrences. I don't know if this is just because I'm on camera or not, but this is one of the few rare occurrences at the 40 dart mark. The behavior issues didn't happen, and that's actually really good. You know, thankfully there's no issues there. This was a bit of a pain in the ass to load anyways, even without that issue, because 50 darts, you're going to be there for a while putting in one at a time. You could probably slide in two if you're quick, you know, if you're used to loading magazines like that. But it's just something worth noting. Also, when it comes to this drum magazine, just handling it in general is something I will be careful about. This is something that's relatively new to me, so I'm going to handle this with care anyways. But if you start throwing this around and bashing it around, even with those previously mentioned feeding issues, if this gets to a point where it doesn't work, you're going to get pissed off quickly. You spend a lot of money for the whole package. You've got the blast and you've got the drum. The drum is more exciting without a doubt, or at least in my opinion. If this doesn't work, what are you going to do? You're going to shell out another £100 or so just to buy another one, just because you were careless enough to, you know, muck around with this and break it? You've got to be careful. I don't know anybody who mucks around with drums anyway, but with something just as precious as this, just knowing what it is, for goodness sakes, please be careful. Now then, I may as well grab my regulator because it's just behind me. I will be comparing this drum size in comparison to other drums as well, because it's quite interesting to look at, it's got to be said. There we go. So this is my personal combo for the regulator, and I love this setup so much. I absolutely love this blaster in particular as well. I used to use the 30 dart Infinite drum, and now I am using the 50 dart drum that comes with the Titan because obviously more darts is really cool. And this still feels perfectly fine. Yes, you can feel the weight of it. This might just be this blaster because of its old configuration, but even then you can definitely feel the weight of a massive drum like this. Even with all the darts loaded in, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But that weight is definitely there. I don't want to fire off the regulator because with my current configuration in my room as well, I don't really have an appropriate target range or any kind of setup there. Magazine wire got stuck, but that's okay. One other thing to note as well is that the magazine kind of main insertion piece is just this top bit. Straight away, if I grab another magazine just behind me, you can see here, put the two next to each other, that's the top piece there. You can see the top piece there up to where that line is, and then you got more standard magazine sort of stretch there. There are other magazines like Fortnite blasters where they come with some crazy shapes. It can cause some behavior issues, and with all the blasters that I've tested this magazine with in particular, it all fits perfectly fine. But there may be a few out there that potentially, you know, knock up against something where the shape is just isn't right enough. So that's just something to keep an eye out for, potentially because of how that has been arranged. If it was just a little bit taller, if it had a bit more of this sort of plastic on there underneath it, then it went into this sort of giant cylinder shape, maybe that could have been a bit better for other blasters to behave with. But again, lucky me, I don't really have that, don't have that issue, so that's a lucky break as well. So I think it's time to compare this to other drums. Now there are, technically there's 4 other drums, but I don't have the smaller one, if you know what I'm on about. The 18 dart Alpha Trooper one, that is. So we have the 50 dart drum next to the 35 dart drum. I think I showed this earlier in the video. Oh my god, my brain isn't working. But this was the king for a while just because it had 35 darts. But it works better when you insert it sideways because it came with a radar. My one in particular doesn't feed well at all. And why would you use this anymore? What is this? The next one is the one I used to use all the time before I was able to get myself one of these. And in my personal setup, I kind of still do. Because I have 2 of these, I would have 2 of these kind of on my side. That's the thing I'm going to have to figure out how to make. But the 30 Dart Infinus drum is actually pretty good. It's another drum that comes with a blaster, but the Infinus is surprisingly cheap nowadays. When it first came out, it was like 60 quid or something really expensive like that, but you can get one on eBay for like 20. No joke, I have seen those listings. Brand new, 20 quid with the drum. It's a good blaster as well, so it's a damn good deal. It's nice and uniform to have 30 darts all together, especially because this drum is in the center, as is this one, of course, when you look at the 35 dart drum from earlier. It's off to a side, which makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of wield, but even then I think that this is still a nice drum. And the most common one, half the size, the 25 darter. Look at this. I've done this before. Look at that! Oh my god, it's literally half the size. That's actually quite amazing. So to turn them around, you basically get the idea. The snaky sort of design of the 50 dart drum is something to get used to, and especially because I'll be looking at the back of that, that's definitely something I'm happy to get used to looking at. But with something as small as the 25 dart drum, it's definitely going to be a much easier thing to fill up and feed through a blaster. Oh, it's just... Can I get a look at that again? God, look at that. I have... hang on a minute. I have another one. How the hell am I going to hold all of these? Right. Here we go. 2 25ers. If I try and hold them like that, that's probably the best thing I can do. 50. Look at that. Oh my god. That's literally perfect. That's just amazing. Literally just 2 25 dart drums squeezed together like that. Amazing. Absolutely spectacular. So, there are probably a few points I wanted to make known in this video that I've forgotten about because I went off on a few tangents. But the main question of this video is the drum alone worth the purchase of a Titan? Now, I think I said this in the actual Titan review as well. There are some things I've kind of bled over into this video. But to kind of just summarize it briefly, I was able to get my blasters cheap. Again, they were second hand. I thought they were worth the purchase, and I'm someone who cares more about the drum than I care about the blaster. If you're a casual nerfer, then it may not be worth it because it could potentially be a bit too expensive. But if you know what you're going for, if you're happy with how you're spending your money, then I for one would say yes, it's worth it alone just for the drum because it's such a cool item. If you're lucky enough, like I am, to be able to get 2 of these, then post a picture online and tell everybody that you have 2 because, you know, you got 2 of these massive drums. It's so cool. Here, if I put them behind there we go. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I could probably say about the 50 dart drum. It is a fascinating product in of itself. If Nerf ever released the 50 dart drum on its own, even if it cost £30, I would probably buy one. It's terrible for me to say that because someone at Nerf, I don't think anybody at Nerf will ever watch this video, but if somehow they do and they go, somebody's willing to pay 30 quid for something like that, we could do that. Yeah, we probably could. But thinking back, the 30 dart drum with the Infinus, you know, that wasn't sold on its own. It was only 30 darts even then. The 50 dart drum that comes with the Titan, you're probably going to have to buy another Titan to get some more. And that's more money going towards Nerf, I suppose. Well, at least if you buy one brand new, maybe. But yeah, it's such a fascinating topic for debate. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below, because I would love to discuss what you think about this overall sort of idea of buying a product just for one item. I've definitely done that a few more times in the past, and more so with attachments as well, but this is something completely different. Thank you all ever so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.